Ray is the director for DevOps at RENCI, where he's leading a team of developers and engineers to deploy open source and analysis techniques on various cyber infrastructure platforms. And of particular interest here, he's going to be talking about one of those areas, which is HydroShare, which has been around for quite some time, sharing out hydrology data for the nation, really. And he's going to be talking to us today about how a lot of that infrastructure can be made more commonly, more accessibly usable across the different domains. In particular, I believe, if I'm reading this right, going into the biomedical informatics as well. And so a presentation a bit, I'm suspecting, about what HydroShare is and how the technologies can be used elsewhere. So with that, Ray, take it away.
Okay, thanks. I'm very excited to be here and present this work. So I'm going to talk about how we've generalized the HydroShare community code for other domains, starting with, in this case, the specific domain of biomedical science and informatics. So I'm going to, as a baseline, introduce HydroShare, which has been presented previously on this call, but more from the standpoint of showing how its capabilities and designs really lend themselves to other domains beyond hydrology, and that is a testament to the leadership that has put that forward, that it's having such good adoption in the hydrologic science community, and that it has value and starting to have adoption in other domains. So this is what I'll be talking about, and what we're going through and kind of the current status and some of the challenges that we face, and what are some of the differences that we've had to put into the architecture between HydroShare and this with this new version that we're calling CommentShare. Okay, so for HydroShare, when Dave Tarberton was doing the introductions, he introduced himself as he is the overall PI of the HydroShare project. He's on the line here with us. So it's structured as an NSF collaborative award. So I'm one of two collaborative PIs for the current HydroShare award. Xiao and Wang at NTSA is the other collaborative PI. And again, on April 6th in 2018, this is an actual link, but there's a YouTube video for.
I wanted to.
Okay, so that was some audio, but that's a link to the YouTube video of Dave's presentation. And so HydroShare is cyber infrastructure that, the software as a service, data service, models as a service, and I'm going to go through some more of this. And it positions its data sets and models as social objects that can be commented on. Okay, so this is the usage as of the middle of last year, where we had 2,600 users. You can kind of see the breakdown of the resources and the type of audience that we have. And as of today, I understand that it's over 3,000 users. So it has 3,000 registered users. So it's in production, and it's hosted here at RENCI, which is an institute at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And so I got, again, as a baseline, I'm getting these slides from what Dave had presented and often presents as the overall PI. But hydrologic is a team sport, so you can kind of think of a lot of domains, including biomedical science and informatics, that require collaboration. So, HydroShare addresses a grand challenge, better hydrologic forecasting, and you can kind of, again, map that to where in genomics there are similar grand challenges. Okay, so can we apply this, this value, the value provided in HydroShare to other domains? So when we look at how people share on the internet now, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Dropbox, so forth, but is there such a thing for hydrologic data? So that's, that's of course how we position HydroShare. So data and models used by hydrologists are diverse. These are examples of some specific types of data that are supported by HydroShare. And we also support in HydroShare generic data. So we can drag and drop, a PDF of this presentation or a PowerPoint just as easily as we could do some more strongly typed data. So it's a platform for sharing hydrologic resources and collaboration. Again, some facets that would be nicely applicable to other domains. people are very familiar with Dropbox kind of capabilities. So, we want to make these kinds of interfaces as intuitive and understandable for the end user to use. And I'm going to watch my time here. So if there's time at the end, I would like to do a quick demo. But we also support in HydroShare metadata descriptions, a nice REST API, web apps, social functions, and the ability to publish data with the DOI. And so the goal is to more easily and freely share products, not just the scientific publication, which is sort of the traditional thinking, but also the data and the models used to create the publication, and assign those DOIs that can be referenced in the paper with, the paper itself will have a DOI, but, soak in the data and soak in the models, and even up to and including some recent works within some of the HydroShare community to make those reproducible. So here's a story here for how HydroShare is used. We have called the Stephen Hall story. So he collects his data in the field. You can kind of think of a hydrologist as doing that. Again, similar, can a researcher collect data off a sequencer, for example? Just kind of drawing parallels between HydroShare and other communities. Deposit the data in the HydroShare repository, verify the data and metadata are correct, but keep the data private. It's not public yet, so the HydroShare supports different access controls for private, discoverable, and public. Discoverable meaning that the metadata only is discoverable, but the data is not downloaded. Then submit the paper for publication. At that point, the data in HydroShare can receive a DOI, and then publish when the paper itself receives a DOI, like I just mentioned. So can the data in the HydroShare infrastructure receive a DOI. So here's some things that HydroShare can do, and I'm going to ask you to sort of, take a mental note of this, because what we did in the subsequent work is to sort of try to look at this as a set. So, we have these sharing data models, access controls, share access visualize, use web services API, publish with a DOI, discover, use web apps, this notion of an app that can act on a resource within the HydroShare environment. And then, so the HydroShare summary of what it can do is it's a web-based environment, supports the multiple hydrologic data types using standards, flexible discovery, model sharing, meaning hydrologic models, and these models can be executable or they can be discoverable as well as discoverable. Facilitate ease of access to use of high performance computing, social media and collaboration, links to other data and models, enable more rapid advances through collaborative data sharing. HydroShare is sustained by the Consortium of Universities for Advanced Hydrologic Science Incorporated, which is over a 100-member university consortium, a nonprofit consortium, also funded by the NSF. And it is responsible for maintaining the production HydroShare with those over 3,000 registered users. And the community of users is obviously growing. So here we get into, there's a paper at the bottom that starts to get into how we started to look at generalizing HydroShare to common share. And what we're doing here is to kind of take the capabilities that have been so well received and used by the hydrologic science community and see if those can be generalized and abstracted so that they're not hydrology specific, but can be applicable to other domains like biomedical science. And the mapping obviously has turned out quite well for us. We've been doing this for over a year with promising results. So it's our current environment has early users, friendly users, we would say, that we're learning from. We don't consider it a production environment, but we're learning as we go. And the HydroShare community, the HydroShare code base is not insignificant. It's over 500,000 lines of code. And so we're able, as NSF funded code, it's very nice that it's Berkeley BSD 3 clause open source license, so that allows us to pick it up with continuing attribution to the HydroShare and Quasi team. So here's a slide from Clarice Castillo, who's on the line as well, that provided the architecture for the Common Share platform. And here we start to see some of the differences that we had to address for the biomedical science and informatics community. There was additional requirements for intermediate identifiers. Some of the search capabilities had to be augmented with ontology-based search, which we've done. We definitely had to very significantly address sensitive data. So obviously, if we're going to put PHI or sensitive health data into the system, that has to be treated. It's not necessary. It doesn't necessarily have a parallel in the hydrologic science community. So there's a lot of new code there. Some of the FAIR work and some of the standards extensions are unique to the biomedical science community, like this GA4GH DOS API that we put in addition to the pre-existing REST API that was derived from HydroShare, doing work with FAIR and so forth. So here's another slide that has the architecture that Clarice did for the platform in more detail. I'm going to leave this as an exercise to the user, but it shows that there's quite a bit of capabilities and and additional needs with respect to things like federated authentication, because if we authenticate in one system, that is the Common Share would be great if we could also have that as an authentication into other systems that may be hosting sensitive data without having to have different authentication across everything. Some of the requirements, there's a lot of requirements for auditing and keeping logs, because those are requirements that have to do with government requirements like FSMA when an institution is hosting government data and so forth. And okay, so here's the kind of the high-level overview of what we've done. Is we've taken hydrology and we've started with Common Share, but we're also saying that the Common Share with the biomedical sciences, it shouldn't be limited to that. And whether, Common Share being for a NIH-funded data commons has its name derived in that, but it could just as easily be something else, share that has to do with yet again a different community. It's really important to stress that when you're dealing with at any given time, 8 to 10 organizations distributed around the United States, actively contributing code with production releases spanning between every 3 to 6 weeks, that software engineering, proper software engineering is really important. So that's, I put this in the abstract for the talk, but doing proper industry-derived, but not exactly in this, it's not as rigorous as industry, but once we have the team, and we do have this in HydroShare, having the team kind of operating in this community rhythm where all the grad students, all the faculty, all the staff, all the software engineers do industry derived, but not necessarily industry exact, because it does have to adapt to academia. With code reviews, obviously versioning, so on and so forth, continuous integration, continuous deployment, that becomes really important, and also a necessary precursor to doing something like taking the code base and deploying it for a different community. Okay. So we're right at 15 minutes, and I know this goes till 4. So here's some links to learn more, which I put in the talks, and quite a few people spanning both the HydroShare and Common Share works, efforts that contribute to this. So I'll stop there and ask if I can take a little bit more time to do just some quick demonstration of the capabilities, or I can stop now and answer questions because I'm right at 15 minutes.
Well, why don't we just pause real quick and see if there are questions. And So thanks for that presentation there. And I was just going to comment, if you haven't seen it in the chat, if you feel like just typing in the chat window rather than speaking, we can take questions that way. And pause for a second, and if not, we can dive into a demo. All right, let's see some stuff in action.
Okay, so here I've created some files. I've got some just artificial public data and some artificial private data. So here's, first is HydroShare. And again, there's a link in the slides that will allow you to see Dave Tarbiton's talk on HydroShare proper that was presented on April 6th of 2018. So I refer you to that. But you'll notice that, the discover, the collaborate up here on the top of HydroShare, is effectively the, very similar tabs here, but, a couple of new ones like concept search, the ability to search full text. So let's go over here. One thing I wanted to mention that we had to do different. So here we have, let me just type this again. One of the things that we do differently is that we have an authentication scheme that uses your host institution. So if I type in here, I can do that, but I can just as easily type in Dave's institution, I believe, Utah. So they're all in there, and that allows you to authenticate. Well, didn't expect that, but always a problem with live demos. But okay, but it allows you to authenticate with your host institution's native credentials. So in our case, they're called onions, and it goes over there and prompts for that key. So I'm already authenticated here in Common Share. I'll open up a new window, and when we say, we want this interface to be as easy to use or familiar with, something like Dropbox, the drag and drop part is similar, but we do some things different that we've derived from this. So we'll put like my public hurricane hydrology thing, data. Actually, I'll put. All right. So we'll create a resource. Notice that it blocks it making public, and this is exactly what HydroShare does until you enter an abstract in a keyword. So my public data, save that. Public data, like that. And at this point, it says, congratulations, you can make it public. And so we go over here. Now it allows us to do that. We make the user accept an agreement. And there it can be, now it's public, which means that it's also discoverable. And we can type in Harvey, put that in the thing. And so I have two resources there. One is that I used as a test earlier, and then the one I just created just now. If I click this, we have the ability to, a couple options here is we can have different users. So if I wanted to make Howard here somebody who can view the data or edit or own it, we can do that. That's all derived from HydroShare. And then we can do COPD and Gene. So like we can add whole groups of people that can also add the whole group can be associated with this level of access control. We can publish it with a DUI or a minute, which I'll show. Actually, I'll show that now. We have the so right now it's mutable, but we can make it immutable with a DUI or an ARC, and the ARC is something we did in addition to the HydroShare. With HydroShare, it's DUIs. With Common Share, it's DUIs and minutes because there is much more of a need for persistent published intermediate data, which the ARCs and the minutes are good for. So we've done that. So I'll show that real quick. Another agreement to accept. And I'll do publish with a minute. And you'll see this thing down here, the GUID, the 32 by GUID, is going to change to an ARC here. And if we click that, hold on. Just one of those timing things. I just needed to give it a little bit more time to get through the system. There we go. There. Okay, so now it's minted a minute for that. Let's go back here. Now we'll do just real quick something that's different. So that's a similar set, but some of the things that are different.
May I ask a question before you go?
Yes, sure, certainly. Yes.
So, this is Florence. You were talking about it's mutable, and then I made it immutable. Did you actually say something like that? Or did I mishear you?
You mean like so when we use mutable and when we use immutable?
Yeah.
Okay, so with so two comments there. With HydroShare, everything is always associated with the 32-byte GUID from the onset, and it remains mutable with that 32-byte GUID to be able to change it until it's published with the DUI, and at that point it becomes immutable. Okay, that's in HydroShare.
Okay, so that's after you publish.
Okay, in Common Share we have the addition of when I publish here. So like if I do I'll do the difference because I have two different ones. So this one has not yet been minted a minute. It's still got the 32-byte GUID, and notice that I can very readily edit it. Change, add more here, save it. Whereas with the version that has the minute, which we can tell by here that it's published, it's going to start blocking these abilities. There's no pencil icon. I can make a copy in the new version of it, but I can no longer edit it because it's immutable with that minute now.
So when you make a new version of it, does it tell people that go to the original version that there's an issue?
It does, and that's again the foresight of the HydroShare, because HydroShare does that. So we just imported that capability wholesale. So I'll go ahead and create a new version.
That's great. And
you'll see that here it's cross-linked. So the new version says an older version of this is here at this resource, and when we click the older resource, it says a newer version is clicked here, and that also shows up in the metadata.
Looks like you should do blockchain architecture since you did this well.
I'll defer that to the blockchain experts on the phone. Okay, so all right, so let's see how we're doing. Yeah, continue to ask questions because I'll just do one more part of the demo, which is the sensitive data, which is very different from HydroShare, and show you some of the capabilities that were recently implemented. So I'll do create new, and I'll put here artificial sensitive data. Okay, do create resource. Okay, so here, and let me just add an abstract. Changes. Add that. Okay, so here it says the resource can be made public, right? So at this point, I could make the data public just like that. Unfortunately, it'll block me saying like, can I really make this sensitive data public? Well, it turns out I can't, so I'm not going to agree to that. But note that here I can still download it, right? So I can download it here, and it'll download to my desktop. And for sensitive data, we needed to preclude that. So what has been implemented recently is the ability to have this additional button here. And so now when it's sensitive, the download is blocked, the ability to make it public is blocked, and the ability to copy or create new versions is blocked. So those are the kinds of things that are very different than HydroShare, and we can also require things like a data use agreement. There's that in HydroShare. There's a very similar capability to do that. One of the things that we did differently also is we overloaded or added additional capabilities to where we have the groups. Where we can add whole groups to access controls. but a lot of the way we position the groups in common share are as whitelists, like who is authorized to have access to a particular data set. And so we can, and groups can also be private. And so HydroShare has no human in the loop to request access, to create an account. You can just sort of click through and your account is created. With Common Share, we have introduced a human in the loop. So a human must always grant access to Common Share as a system that hosts sensitive data, and must also explicitly grant access to a whitelist of users that are known to be able to access it. And even still, we require those users to click a data use agreement before being accepted into the whitelist, even if somewhere on some paperwork or some policy in another organization, they already have that access. But this gives us the provenance train for the audit trail that keeps track of these things, that we can always show that the user did agree, that user agreed to that data use agreement, and that we had a system that required that, and then they're given access to the sensitive data. And then some other things. Let's see, we're at 3:50. We have 4 minutes. Just some other things that we really concentrate on. There are things that are in HydroShare, they're like works in progress of being able to run Jupyter notebooks and things on HPC resources. We have a little bit more flexibility in Common Share because it's not a production system, so we can try a lot of things. So there's the ability to take the work of CIDAS, which Clarice, on the phone, Clarice Castillo is the RENCI PI of, and we've integrated CIDAS here within Common Share called Pivot, so that it allows us to run those things cloud agnostically. So if we were to choose this, it could actually choose for us whether to run it on Amazon or Google. And also, and that's a lot. There's a whole separate presentation about how much work that took to get that far. And we also have the ability to instance an individual EC2 instance per user in Amazon, which we can use to host a variety of software that is useful to that community. So for them, for example, like viewing DICOM images, or a DICOM image format, which in the case of the users of this system represents COPD gene patient data, which is basically has to do with imaging the lungs. All right, so we're at 2 minutes to go. That's probably as much of I can fit into this time frame before time runs out. So.
No, I think that's good. I think we have a couple of little things just to announce at the end here, but want to thank you for a good presentation and just make sure there aren't any other questions or other things before we move on to.
I got a quick question. First of all, thanks very much. That was a great demo, and again, sort of, I think, gives us the opportunity to see what's out there. The question I have is HydroShare, as far as sort of its overall functionality, seems super well suited to obviously plug into any sort of science domain. What thoughts do you have around that in terms of sort of hydro specific? I mean, even the name being, very sort of domain specific.
Yeah, and Dave Tarberton, feel free to help out, but I think we both agreed that having an ecosystem of this type of software and generalizing an effort like HydroShare, which was initially funded in 2012, but we started working on this in 2010. It is great for the sustainability model. So a lot of what is being presented here is that HydroShare is so well thought out that it just very naturally, those capabilities lend themselves and are really well positioned to suit other domains and aren't necessarily hydrology specific. So I don't know, Dave, if you wanted to say anything else.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if Dave's still on. But okay. All right.
No, that's kind of what I suspected, but just wanted you to comment on that if you saw any reason why it couldn't be extended.
Right, and the software engineering is very critical, like I mentioned earlier, and you know, having an open source license like Berkeley, you know, BSD 3 clause is really important.
Yeah, thanks.